Hey guys, how's it going? It's Rico Nasol here. I coach entrepreneurs and aspiring executives how to build high-performing collaborative teams. Today we're going to talk about how to make the transition from individual contributor into a leadership management role. So let's get into it. So for many people, going from an individual contributor or like a frontline worker, going into a leadership role or management role is like super exciting, right? Like it's what you kind of want to do, right? Once you master your craft, you want to move on to the next thing. And so it can be a really exciting time for people getting promoted and things like that. But there are some pitfalls that can happen if you're not really in the right mindset or not ready to make that transition. So today we're going to get into some of those things, just tactical tips and how you can make the transition. But first, let's talk about why this could happen and why it's good. So there are benefits to promoting from within. And if you know me, my time at Zappos and Netflix, I'm a huge fan of promoting from within. Because when you do promote from within, or you do get promoted from within, you know the work really well. You know it intimately because you've done it before. So that is a huge benefit to using someone that's getting promoted from within the company. The other benefit is you have an idea of what works and what doesn't, right? Don't get me wrong, you still want to make sure that your team feels empowered to bring new ideas and things like that to you. But in general, like what teams you need to work with and things like that. So huge benefit, you can hit the ground running there. And then the last benefit, or one of the other benefits, is actually stronger continuity. So when you hire from outside, there's like an onboarding period. They have to get used to the systems, get used to, whatever the language is when you get to a new company. Oh my God, at Zappos and Netflix, there's so many acronyms and nicknames and all that stuff. The jargon that comes along with creative tech. But anyways, when you have someone that's promoted from within, like you, there's strong continuity. You already have all that context. You don't need to onboard. You can kind of hit the ground running in your new role. Some of the challenges, and these are challenges, are for one, were your peers once before, now are your reports. So that will take a little bit of getting used to. They may still have this idea of like, oh, you're not my leader, you're just my chum. In some cases, you want to toe that line really well. You do want to be friendly and you want to be have good relationships, but there is a dynamic there where you're their leader, and then so there's going to be a slight transition there where some folks might have a hard time. The piece for you is you must be ready to coach. Not saying like you have to have it all down, but at least in your mindset, you have to be ready to coach and be ready to deal with conflict. One thing you didn't have to do as an individual contributor is have to deal with all the different dynamics and conflicts that happen on other parts of the team. When you're now elevated into a leadership role, you now have to deal with a lot of those conflicts. Or coaching, when someone has to come to you with advice, hey, I have this situation where an engineer isn't really quite understanding what I'm asking. What do I do here? And so you've got to be able to walk them through these scenarios, coach them up, and then work through conflict if these two parties aren't seeing eye to eye. And the last challenge is what the main focus of this video is going to be on, is you can't do your old job and do your new job. So you really have to find ways to offload all the things you were doing as an individual contributor so you can truly make that transition into a leadership role and all the things that it takes to be a leader. Right? And so let's talk about some of those things. Don't forget, if you're into the content, make sure you hit that like button and then subscribe so you can get more of my videos and you can help other people discover my content. I'm here to help you all. Let me know if there's anything in the comments that you want me to make a video around or any questions I can answer. Here's an example from transitioning from an individual contributor into a leader, right? So my team, I led a bunch of creatives. And so if you're a designer, right? And you got promoted into a leadership role, you can't think about individual design anymore on single projects, right? You really need to think about the larger landscape, of the design landscape at your company. What are you trying to accomplish through all the different design strategies? Not just one in particular, so not just one experience or one graphic. You really need to think about the ecosphere. How is all this going to fit together? How is this all going to play in the bigger picture? If you're in the minutia of the day-to-day of these little projects, you may not see with clarity the vision you need to be able to translate these things for everyone else. So getting out of that day-to-day is hard for some people. Some people really love designing editing, writing, or whatever it is. So this is really a mindset shift where you're not going to be able to do that on a day-to-day basis anymore. Maybe here and there you can provide feedback, but you really have to take yourself out of that day-to-day and designing or editing or writing on individual projects. What you're going to need to do, though, is empower your team and have them be laser focused on those things, right? They're the experts, as you were, right? They're the experts. Let them take the lead on these projects and really take them to the next level. You have to do all you can now to remove roadblocks. That's what your role is now. Remove all roadblocks, bring the context, bring the clarity for those folks on your team to be laser focused on that. So you stepping out of the day-to-day, giving them more permission and more room and more context and more information so they can do their jobs and be laser focused and do it better. And by far, this is the hardest thing to transition into a leadership role when you haven't been in one before, especially if you're passionate about it, right? You'll miss doing those things. So also keep that in mind when you are being promoted, if that's something you want to do. If it's not, then you need to have that conversation with your direct leader. So now let's get into three tactical tips on how you can start to make this transition or make it at least smoother for you when you're moving into a leadership role. The first one is start succession planning ASAP. Like, you should have started doing that yesterday. Your leader before you probably should have been doing that. Maybe that's how you got your role. Start succession planning. And I have a video about that. I'll link it up here, wherever it is. I'll link it up there. I'll also link it in the description below, and you can check that out in more depth. But really what the nuts and bolts of succession planning is you're training your team to one day replace you, right? It's essentially just training your replacement. But what you need to do now is look at your team, find out what all their superpowers are, ask them what they want to get into, how do they want to grow, like where do they see their career going, and then point them, that's the other part of being a leader, point them in the right direction. Somebody maybe is really good at project management and they want to take on bigger projects. Like, say there's a tool that needs to be built and it needs a creative perspective or a subject matter expert, right? Let them take lead on that project for your team. So then now it's off your shoulders having to do that, and you really have someone who's a subject matter expert to provide the right amount of feedback, has the tactical ideas, boots on the ground perspective. And so take all those things that you were doing before and find these little places to put them, and not only empowers your team, but also you're delegating it, takes it off of your plate. And it has been proven with succession planning, you actually build a higher performing, more collaborative team. I'm always going to bring it back to that because that's what we're here to do on this channel. So when they feel empowered, when you're letting them do the things that they want to do, the things they feel like they're growing and learning and being challenged by, it's going to create a much stronger environment, and they'll appreciate you as a leader for doing it. Tactical tip 2 is you set the vision and the priorities, right? So if you're on an existing team, it might be just kind of reinforcing that and having that conversation like, hey, remember, these are our goals and our priorities. This is the lens with which we prioritize things, and just kind of resetting that context and also setting the expectations of how you're expected to lead. What I typically do is say, you all are smarter than me. Let me know what I can do to help clear these roadblocks for you. But these are the things that I want us focused on. If anything you're working on doesn't fit into these buckets, then you have to question whether we should be doing it or not. So having that clarity up front with your team, kind of just sitting them down, take a team meeting, offsite, however you want to handle it, and just have this conversation with them so they know what your expectations are, they know the goals of the team, they know what the vision is, and then now you set them up for success. You provided that clarity. If it's a new team, which I really love, like when I took on new teams or actually built new teams from scratch, which I've done everywhere, you have vision sessions, right? So you take the team, the folks on your team, and you sit down and like you work through what is our mission, what are the goals, and what are the priorities, and those things are distinctly different, right? And I'll do a video on this, on what's the difference between a mission, goals, and priorities. But do that together. Like your team, like you as a leader, if it's a new team, overall, like by and large, what your larger vision is going to be, like whether it's user experience for a certain thing, or testing, or production, whatever it is, by and large what your team has to do. But setting a strong vision so they can all see it and realize and get behind it, and sort of like it's that engine that gets everybody going in the morning. Like, set that vision and that mission so that people know, like, what are we here to do? Like, how do we impact the world? And then you set the goals and priorities. That just tells people how to how to prioritize their work, right? The lens which what they look through, like I said again. But the benefit of doing it on a new team with a new team is you get to do that together. You get to bond, you get to build that relationship. Then you hopefully out of that you able to debate better, like all those things that come from going through those exercises together. It's gonna build even stronger teams. So I really love when I get to do it with new teams. Don't get me wrong, with existing priorities and stuff like that, it's just as fun. But it's exciting when it's a new team. And lastly, the third thing is removing yourself from the tactical. And let me explain what that means. And keep in mind, this is where a lot of new leaders either sink or swim. So it's important for you to, like, of all the tips, I save it for last. Of all the tips, this is the one to remember the most. And these tactics are ones that I used to actually progress my career at Zappos and Netflix and everywhere else I went. But progress my career there. But it also empowered and built strong leadership teams around me, right? So one of the first things is, we talked about it earlier, you need to take yourself out of the day-to-day work. Like, you can't take on the individual projects. And one way to do that is take yourself out of these tactical meetings. So if there's project meetings that you are sitting in, right, or just force of habit, people invite you because you are the go-to person all the time, start to step out of those things, right? Or you can be in them, but direct all of your questions to your team members. So if Jill is there, and someone asks you, hey, what do you think of this design? Well, actually, Jill is the point person for my team for this project. So Jill, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. And always, defer to your team member, but also be there for support. So if they're a little shaky, give them the support, be there for moral support, and then help them out. Like, oh, we talked about it the other day. I think you were thinking about the design in this way, or whatever, right? Just coming up with an example. But start to empower your team members and punt questions and answers to them, so that not only shifts the mindset in yourself, but also shifts the mindset of your team members and their partners. Because the partners, all of a sudden you see them in their chair in this meeting, right? They're looking at you and they say like, hey, what do you think about the design? Oh, actually, Jill has some great thoughts on the design. Jill, I'd love for you to provide them. Instantly you'll see them shift, right? Jill, what are your thoughts? So it's a great way, to pull yourself out. Then you can, wean yourself off and just stop attending that meeting because your team member has it, and they'll let you know if anything happens, right? Same goes for emails or other correspondence. If you have folks in your team that in step 1, the succession plan, you've identified, point of contacts or subject matter experts for certain things, don't feel bad about deferring them or adding them to the email thread. So you can CC them, hey, Jack is on here. He's the expert on tooling. So if you have any questions, please ask Jack. So now you're really empowering your team and you're making it explicit to everybody what your expectations are. Ask Jill. Don't ask me, ask Jill. Ask Jack. They're the experts. They're smarter. They're going to be here for you. They're your partner. All those great things. So this is the part that's the hardest, because a lot of new leaders want to feel important and they want to feel like, yeah, I got promoted for a reason. They want my opinion, my thoughts and all this stuff. But really what your new role is to, yes, provide that, but do it through your teams, right? Help your team start to craft their thoughts, their opinions and all that. And that makes them stronger, and then you start to lift them up and you start to, lead from behind. Because when you have a strong team, they know who's behind it. But if you're just the leader up front and, you're kind of leaving your team behind, they know what that means too. So super important. Remember, succession plan, set your vision, and then remove yourself from the tactical. If you can do those things, I think you'll have much higher chance for success from moving from an individual role into a leadership role. Hope you liked it. Once again, if you have questions or comments, definitely let me know. Comment below. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Later.